Alright, quick deck tech for Pioneer. We're going to be trying in the casual queues, because I'm diving back into Pioneer now, this 80 card Niv list from a while back. So we have 35 lands, deck list will be in the description. We're running, let's put the display window up because I always forget. Full playset of Voice of Resurgence to just stem against aggro decks. Rip Apart answers enchantments to small creatures. Abrupt Decay, small permanents. Dreadball, planeswalker removal. Scorn for creature removal. Drown the Lock. And then Vanishing Verse for permanent removal. Valky Tybalt for the combo. Full playset of Widespread Thievery. This probably should be Fable of the Mirror Breaker, but I'm not forking out the kind of money they want for it right now on MTGO. Full playset of Wandering Mind to dig for cards. Colligan's Command for versatile removal. Glisser as a good tryout here. Kaito, because I'm still impressed with him. One Edgar. One Supreme Verdict. Full playset of Bring to Light. Niv Mizzet Reborn and Leyline Binding. Moving to our sideboard. We have obviously 80 cards, so we're Yorion deck. One Omnath in the sideboard just for life gain in aggro, I think. Supreme Verdict, more removal. Control matchup counters. Graveyard Hate with the go blanks. Fracture for more versatile removal if we need it. Vetoes for control matchups. And Alpine Moon for the Lotus combo / Nick Voss decks. And that's the deck. We'll see how we do in the matches. Alright, here's our first game here. This first match... Oh, by the way, I'm going to be replaying these at speed 4, so... Our opponent opens with Simic, so I assume this could be the Lotus Field. However, they drop the Scanter, we drop a Rip Apart, and we start getting in with a Voice of Resurgence. Opponent drops a Field, so I'm hesitant about cracking the Fable. Decided to drop down a Glisser in case they have any more enchantments she could deal with. And our opponent drops a Dictate of Crewfix, which instantly makes me sigh, because this means this is some kind of Turns or Fog deck. Possibly both. So, end step, we crack the Fable. And our opponent takes out our others, Triome. Fortunately, we have all basics, as I've said before, just in case. So what we need to do here is just set up Lethal. Our opponent drops a Fog, so we now know what they are. We find the Widespread Thievery. We swing in to send a message. We've basically just got to find counter magic to hold up against what they've got here. We find a Leyline Binding, so I choose to drop the Widespread Thievery. They drop a Root Snare. So I decide to take out this Jace before they can go any further. I use Colligan's Command, make them discard and take out Jace. Then with the one single treasure we made, because we have all 5 land types, we'll Leyline Binding the Crewfix. Swing in to send another message. Our opponent has Memory in the graveyard, so that could be their plan here. We untap and drop another Wandering Mind to dig for an answer, so in response they Root Snare, good play to make sure we don't have a counter. The Chemist is in sight. We have a board the size of, well, something crazy. Drop another Wandering Mind to find Widespread to find another Widespread underneath it. Opponent goes up to 7 lands. They cast a Torrential Gear Hulk and flashback the Memory to draw 7 cards. Clearly they don't have a Fog here, and this is a desperation dig to find another Fog. Ultimately, we untap, play a land, and I decide, because I have Valky in hand and never have this opportunity again, cast a hard cast Tybalt. Opponent concedes. So Clothis comes in to eat their graveyard because they had flashback mechanics. We have the control pieces and the graveyard hate. We take out some Scorns because they don't have much things. Kaito and Edgar, because ultimately we'll need to hit them hard and fast. We can't let them set up their engine, so taking a turn off on turn 4 could be fatal. So we go into second game. Hand's okay, but we mulligan. We get rid of one of our Bring to Lights because we have a Leyline Binding, a Widespread Thievery. We drop a Jetmir's Garden and then hold up our Fable. So with double Fable, we can get the 2 lands here, or I could get a green to cast Voice. Our opponent gets such a Scanter going, so I want to get some pressure on the board, so I choose the Forest. Drop the Voice of Resurgence. Our opponent in response casts Haze of Pollen, cycles Haze of Pollen. They're looking to flip the Scanter as quick as possible here. You see them dropping more cards in. I choose not to get blue here because I'm sure that if I can just get the Widespread Thievery online, I'll be okay. But It's my choice here to drop Glisser, because if I can get a hit in with Glisser before they start fogging infinitely, I can use it to kill the search for a Scanter before it flips. We don't find a blue source again, so I drop the Widespread Thievery here to see what our opponent does. And they drop in a Dictator Crewfix and a Root Snare. I choose to Leyline Binding the Crewfix because we don't want them getting extra cards. We've got to starve their resources and take them out. Our opponent flashes back the Chemist's Insight. We top deck a Niv, but no blue mana, so we literally could be fine if we drew any blue spell, but we didn't. So blue mana was a source of problem for this. I put Yorion into hand. They flip his Scanter, the Sunken Ruin. Shock a land in. So with Wandering Mind here, we can use this. So first I'm going to force them to use whatever they've got, which is another Fog. We've got to keep their hand down as much as possible. So I choose to play Yorion here. The plan is to blink what I can, but they have a Quench, which is fine. They end step a Scanter, find another Fog. Play a Treasure Vault, which makes it interesting for me. So I choose here to use the blue from this to cast the Wandering Mind to play around their counter spells. We find another Leyline Binding, so I choose to hold up a double Leyline here because I'm scared of maybe some kind of Omniscience or instant win play they want to do here. They tap all their mana, which makes me scared of a Cyclonic Rift, but in the end they just pump a bunch of treasures. They cast a Fog to prevent us taking any damage. We pass the turn to them. In their end step, they activate a Scanter, clearly looking for something. They choose a Dictative Crewfix. They tap down again to do Chemist's Insight. So in my end step, I plan to double Leyline Binding both the treasure tokens to cut them off from some of their spells. However, I guess they didn't find it. Next match here, we have a solid start here, so I decided to keep this. And fair warning here, this is where we fight spirits. And this is where I learned that I did not put the Deafening Clarions in the board at all. So as you can imagine, we get hosed here by a pretty solid play from spirits. They basically have double Wanderer, double Lord in game 1, I believe. So they protect their Lord with a Wanderer, play their land, have another Wanderer, have another Phantom, and we are basically just dead here. We need to draw something to do here, so I drop Widespread. We need top deck, literally a board wipe, but we don't find it. Opponent goes to combat, plays another Spectral Sailor, so they have literally a 2-turn clock on us here. All on this draw, we don't find it, concede. Ring in Clothis, ring in another board wipe. This is where I learn, as you can see, I'm looking for my Clarions, but I don't have them. So I decide Mystic Dispute, since their deck is primarily blue. Maybe that could help us out. I look for interaction, find a slow hand, which I shouldn't have kept in hindsight, but I was on tilt here, and trusted I could at least maybe draw a land. They drop the Maelstrom Wanderer, and our tap land cycle continues. Mana base is definitely something I'll look at. We get hit for 1. They're clearly holding up a Rattle Chains here, so I drop in a Leyline Binding to bait out a Rattle Chains, because I can always blink a Leyline Binding late game if we get there. We find our land here, so I choose to take out the Rattle Chains to nullify their flash and have mana up to pay for the Maelstrom, the Mausoleum. They tap. They think about what they're going to do here. They have Wanderer into Selfless Spirit. We pass. I choose to go with a Widespread Thievery here to try and dig for an answer, because we're not going to pay particularly through 2 of this with their removal spell. And now they have a Lord, so they have 3 layers of protection for this Lord, and we're on 1 turn away. This match was not happening, so basically I can survive if I take out force them to sack the Selfless Spirit, and then in their upkeep I can use Drown in the Loch to take out one of the Wanderers. I choose to shock in there, which was a mistake in hindsight as well. We use Drown in the Loch in their upkeep, kill a Wanderer, force them, so they now have 4. If they have any Lord, Hero or Thing effect like that, we're just dead. They have a Glass Ball Miracle coming as a Lord, so we just move on to our next game. So, we have a game here. Opponent opens with a Mana Complements into a Forties. The opponent says I switch because this guy played Spirit and I dropped out game 1 because I wanted a few diverse games. Spirit seems to be making a comeback. We drop our lands here and hold up interaction. We basically have a Leyline Binding. I'm not sure what they're on yet, but it appears to be Abzan. I really don't... I tap out for a Widespread Fever here. They hit a Grizzly Salvage and then I suddenly realize, uh-oh, this is Rat Pilot and I do not have interaction up. I'm prepared to concede there if they have the perfect hand, but they don't, thankfully. They Witherbloom Command, trying to dig and find some answers. Then they drop the Scrapwork Mutt, new addition to the deck. I choose to drop the cards in and play a Kaito because we have all the basic land types. This treasure now can pay for a Leyline Binding. I choose to uptick to keep Kaito alive because if they have removal for the drone and swing in, they will just kill Kaito and I can do nothing about that. They traverse to find a Rat Pilot, Greasefang. Holding priority before they move to the trigger, I will get rid of it with the Leyline Binding. I untap here, shocking a land. I choose to make a drone here because I have a lot of untapped land to protect Kaito. And I choose then to put in Yorion into my hand. Do I in the end? I do, holding up an Abrupt Decay and then going to make a treasure with the Abrupt Decay off the Widespread to use the Leyline Binding. Our opponent, Witherbloom commands to kill their own Mutt to bring it back to get another loot. Clearly they're struggling for cards here. They swing in at Kaito, so I choose to trade here because what we really want is the 2 life here. We've got to buffer our life total in case they get a Parhelion in our face. I choose to get the Wandering Mind onto the field because that's great with Kaito. It's one of the main synergies I love about it. Wandering Mind comes in, we hit another Abrupt Decay. We draw with the Kaito trigger to find a Voice of Resurgence, but we want to hold up mana in case they go off. This is like old Splinter Twin basically now. We have to hold up interaction to stop them from going crazy. Rafine's Informant into a Chariot. Quite problematic for us. In the end step I choose to get rid of the Informant, just to keep their blocks down. Crack a Fable. Plus a Kite. Plus Kite, oh sorry. Cast the Voice of Resurgence to trigger the Widespread to get the Tyrant Scorn. Now I will plus to make the cat unable to attack, swing in with the Wandering Mind, bounce it back to hand, get another drone on the field just to keep us safe, play another Wandering Mind to find another answer. We find a Colligan's Command, which is Chef's Kiss in this scenario. They Grizzly Salvage, throw away a Can't Stay Away. They go down to 8, put another Rafine's Informant to connive, Scrabble Mutt goes to the graveyard. They crew the Seeker's Chariot and go for the attack. Before that though, I'm going to Leyline Binding and they concede the game. They concede the whole match. Alright, we're in the next game now. We're slightly off here because I had to do some editing after the audio file messed up. Opponent drops a Spike Field, so I instantly think, okay, this must be Burn, or yes, it is. Is it Phoenix? So we immediately Abrupt Decay the Ledger Shredder to keep him out of the game. They get a Phoenix in the graveyard, which is on tap here. Use a Wandering Mind. It immediately gets sniped, but that's good because at least they're not chaining spells in our turn. They opt and then do nothing. So they seem to have an awkward hand here, so we choose this turn to get down the Widespread. We hit a Niv underneath it, pass the turn. Our opponent hits the Treasure Cruise. So, flash forward on this match, ironically, is I think we play pretty well. We do pretty good against this, as you can see here. We try to take out the Phoenixes. We try to double get them. So we try to exile the Phoenix, they remove try to kill it in response, so we try to exile it again. We need a Spell Pierce. But I'm more happy to trade resources here because we'll eventually score the reload with an Mizzet, particularly knowing that we've got one hidden under the Widespread Thievery. The only issue I have though is we get the Urian into hand here. Ultimately we lose to basically extra turn spells because you'll see the Hall of the Storm Giants there on the other side of the field, and our opponent just goes piece of the puzzle, piece of the puzzle. This is probably where I need better graveyard hate in the sideboard. You'll see in the next match. So we dreadbore this, reload, and then pay for a full Niv Mizzet off the Widespread Thievery. Reload and find Glisser, bring to light, and rip apart. Not the greatest in this matchup. We need instant speed removal because they will basically just bring Phoenix back and kick our butt. Galvanic Iteration, as you can see here, into Temporal Trespass to get 2 extra turns. We're on 15 life. And here is the beatdown. So, opponents, pieces of the puzzle, Galvanic Iteration, extra turn again. So now they've got like 3 turns in a sequence. They get a Phoenix back here. They don't attack. They got 3 attacks with the Hall of the Storm Giant here. So we're basically done for here. With their extra 3 turns, we can't actually do anything. So we block the Arclight Phoenix here, and they have removal for it. So we're going to die to it. Bring in our hate and our graveyard hate. Take out the Kaidos and the Glissers. They're not going to do much in this matchup. Ultimately, looking round, Valky's cool, but I don't think it'll give us a big win. Finally, we'll take out the Niv Mizzet here. It's great to have with the Bring to Lights, but ultimately we need to hit the graveyard hate. And this is the problem we run into in this match, is we hit some of our graveyard hate, we hurt them out, but the same situation occurs where they just take 5 extra turns in a row and have the Hall of the Storm Giant, and we don't have a way to answer it. Ironically, I thought the Abrupt Decay could answer it. However, it's a non-land permanent, and when it turns into a creature, it's still a land. It's blue, so it can be exiled. Yeah, so our opponent brings in some of the sideboard, so we just start hating it out. So they lose their Legend Shredder and their Young Pyromancer. Treasure Cruise immediately. We draw a Go Blank here. I choose to save that because I want to try and get a bigger Gotham. We get an Edgar, put him onto the field. Galvanic Iteration is a double piece of the puzzle. We see them get 2 Temporal Trespasses, and they drop 2 Phoenixes in the graveyard. So this Go Blank is looking real juicy. We exile their graveyard here, force them to discard 2 cards. They discard one of the Temporal Trespasses, which is good for us. But they just refill their graveyard immediately, and now they've hit a Disdainful Stroke. So now I've got to bait them into using that. So in their end step, whenever they cast a spell this turn, is it this turn or next turn? I think it's next turn. They hit another Treasure Cruise, so I choose to counter it here, just to hold off on them for a bit. Again, Abrupt Decay. So my plan is, if they don't play anything I could Abrupt Decay, I will Abrupt Decay my own treasure token to trigger the Widespread. So we Abrupt Decay, use all of our treasures here to cast the Edgar. This unfortunately triggers the Connive, and in response our opponent cantrips. You also notice that they are down to 16 cards. They have successfully in both of these games gone through their entire deck. With their shields down, I choose to go for Bring to Light here, and this is the ultimate problem. Reload! I want to get Graveyard Hate, but I still just die to whatever's in their hand. In hindsight, I should have really got the Graveyard Hate and hoped for a better draw. So yeah, we have Niv here, and we have Vanishing Verse and Tyrant Scorn, but ultimately, our opponent just has Galvanic Blast, Galvanic Iteration, into a second Galvanic Iteration, well, or is it the flashback? It's a flashback galvanic iteration, my bad. Into a triple turns spell. And in hindsight, as I said before, yes, I should have discarded their hand. This is where I learned here. But also, I feel that if maybe my graveyard hate was static hate like the I get greedy here, so I choose to not take the hit here. And ultimately what I try to do is see how many turns I can survive. So this is the turn where I'm too greedy. I let them hit me. My plan is I'm going to just let it go, but they have double fiery iteration and ultimately we lose the match. Alright, we are back after 5 or 6 matches. I'm going to cut one because it was a grind fest Nick Foss deck that even with our sideboard hate we could not win, but our opponent was either completely incompetent or being an absolute cock and just had a way to kill us for like 12 turns but just wanted to keep playing and doing dumb stuff and not pushing for pressure. And you know, we came close to fighting our way out of it but ultimately didn't. And then when I pointed that out to him, he was just like, oh, you're just a sore loser because... And I was like, no, you could have won earlier. And he went basically on a rant or something. So, thoughts on this deck. Definitely needs a huge tweak. I'm probably going to actually try a Gigantha list going forward in both formats. I want to try 60 cards because 80 cards, while I do love some of the synergies, is really starting to irk me when I get... The biggest problem is I'm not finding my sideboard hate as much as I'd like to because of the 80 card list, so we're going to switch it around to that. Other things I noticed, need more board wipes for smaller creatures. The spirits list completely hosed us. I still need to find a better answer to the Nick Foss decks. I just genuinely don't know. I'm going to have to look at lists people are putting out. So all in all, I would not recommend this list. It is not tuned enough for the current meta that we're seeing right now. I've played a few extra games that I'm not going to put in the recording. But yes, that Atraxa reanimated match was just hilariously fun. But that's the final straw for me here because there were so many things we could have drawn. We could have got the, you know, at any point when we're struggling for blue, we could have got the Wandering Mind or the Widespread Thievery. We could have got more of our Leyline Bindings, but we didn't see them because of the 80 card list. And we could have exiled the graveyard if we'd found the sideboard card. So I don't think 80 is the new 60 in this regard. I'm going to rebuild a 60 card list for our next videos. I think next week I'm going to do an Explorer, so we'll see how that thing goes from there.